So welcome back to the next part of filling in the hull. So I want to cover 3 points here. One's the actual XPS blocks. The second is joining the hull together. And the third is bits and pieces I've found out with regards to the upper hull. So for the blocks themselves, they're not glued in at the moment, and what I did was I cut them all individual sizes initially, just with straight cuts, as you can see in the photo, and I also just marked them with the bottoms in each of the numbers so they can go back in, because they were slightly different sizes. The next stage was to roughly remove the bulk of the excess material just using the hot wire table. And that was a fairly simple cut. And then the last stage was to take each block and sand it individually, leaving a bit of line left. And to sand them, I used various homemade sanding sticks, some commercial ones, but what I did find was I had a couple of just MDF ones that I'd glued a couple of different grades of sandpaper. So the yellow is really good at quickly removing bulk material. This one's a bit too fine, but it smooths it a wee bit. These were made for something else, but I came across them and it turned out that these are doing the job well. So moving on to the second point, the joining of the hulls. The reason I left the blocks off was because to join them together, if I left the blocks in, I've no way of clamping. And if it's did the final sand here, when I do the join, it's going to come to the fact I'm going to need to do more sanding, so ultimately I may over sand. So what I'll do is I'll join the two halves first and then put the blocks in after that. Because this is V1 and this is V2, the actual joins need to be flush. So there's a fair bit of different steps on the hull which we'll cover, but to get these flush all the way around, I need to do it without the blocks, because the blocks are blocking the view as well as preventing me gluing them together. So the third point was with the upper hull. I had a bit of trouble determining where these parts went. It looked obvious, but it took a bit of working out. So as you can see, they actually just sit on the next part. So I've just made them flush with the, it must be V4. So as you can see, they're doubled up now. These little cutouts here, that needs to be opened up. They were confusing me a bit as well, because I wasn't entirely sure what they were. But if we have a look at the drawing, part 24 is these blocks. And then if you have a look at the parts, here's 24 here. So they appear to be some kind of either waste or garbage chute or scuppers. I think they're just for rubbish to get outside the hull into the water, just to dispose of. So that was that. The other thing I was unsure of is how the lower hull skin comes up and how it interacts with the upper. So having a look at the instructions, I did translate this, and it talks about the white notch intersecting with the V1 and V2. So if we have a look at these one, and this is a good example of this one here, because here's the V white notch, so that must be the boundary between V1 and V2, and then you can see the square cutouts for that garbage chutes or scuppers. So that kind of answered some questions, and it also says it goes over V3 from above, so it must wrap over the top of it. And then if we go back to this drawing here, you can see the hull skins here, the lower ones, and they've got curves. So what that suggests is the skin's going to come up from the lower hull, up flush with this side here, these openings which I will fill in. And then as per the drawing, it suggests that this edge here is rounded. So it will come up, round over that edge, and then go up vertically. But the black or the upper hull skin will come down and sit on that ledge. But this needs to be rounded off as well. The next thing to do is I'll take out all these blocks, and as you can see, this is 10R. That's the back face, and that's the bottom. Just so I can put them back into the right places when it comes time to glue them. So I'll remove all these blocks, and then we'll look at gluing the two halves together. Alright, that's all the blocks removed. So the next stage now is to glue the V1 lower hull to the V2 upper hull. So as mentioned, the important part here is to get that two flush all the way around. So glue, there's plenty of options, I guess. What I'll do is I'm going to stick with the woodworker's glue here. Normally, gluing the card together, I would just use a brush. But because of the sheer volume or area, I want to keep it wet all the way through. So if I'm applying with a brush, it's going to start drying out by the time I get to the other end. So what I'll do is I'll just use a business card, and I'll actually just put the glue on directly and then use the card to distribute the glue, because I want it to remain wet. So let's do this now. I've also got lots of miniature cola specs, because I'll be able to get in to hold the two halves together, and I've got enough to go all the way around both sides, so that will keep it gripped. So let's see how we get on. Be important to work fairly quickly. Like I say, I want to keep the surfaces wet. So I'll just have to keep the glue moving. Of course, I don't want to overdo it. And of course, the edges is the important part. I'm sure there's better glues and methods to do, but this is kind of what I'm stuck with. See, even spreading it quickly, it's starting to dry in some sections. And plus the card absorbs a lot of it. But so up as we go. Once I get it fixed and held in position. Okay, so now it's just a case of putting these on. Okay, so that's that all glued together. So what we'll do is we'll just leave this now for a while to go off. Probably a lot messier than I would have liked or I would usually do. The other alternative would be to use like a contact adhesive where you apply it to both halves, let it dry, and then you place it together and press it, and then it's joined. But the once it grabs, you've no wiggle room or wiggle time. So once it goes off, or once you contact, that's it. So you have to get it right first time. So we'll let this go off, and then we'll come back and continue. So with the glue set up for the two halves, we can now attach the lower hull foam. What I've also done is, after removing the clothes pegs, I've filled in the gaps with more foam, and we'll sand this down later, but we'll attach the hull blocks now. So again, just using woodworkers PVA. I'll start in the middle, so number 6. So what I'll do is I'll just apply glue to the top edge, the bottom, and a strip down each side. I'll apply it to the card, because when you push your foam in, you don't want to apply it to here, because the glue will just get rubbed off. So we'll just get that done now. I'm going to be quite liberal with this, because we do want it to be solid. Okay, so just double checking the number 6R, this is the right one. We can then slot that in. Okay, so I'll do the other one and then we'll just work along. I might have to replace this glue, it's getting very runny for some reason. It's 6L, so once the other blocks go in, they'll push these together. I should actually work from one end. That's what I'll do. I'll start from the bow and work back. Okay, so that's all the whole foam attached now. So what we'll do is we'll let this go off, and then we'll come back and sand and fair the hull to shape. We can finally get down to sanding of the hull. So there's a few areas, we'll treat it in a few separate parts. We've got this first section here, the vertical section, so we'll do that first, and then we've got the center section which has to be flush with the bottom. So we'll kind of work on both sides. A couple of points in the front here, we're going to be concave, and then at the back in some of the areas we're going to be concave and convex. So some areas will be easier than others. This center section is pretty straight, but then we just need to make sure we transition from straight to convex to concave. So we just want to take the blocks or the foam down to the forms. We don't want to go too far and start reshaping the formwork. So for the sanding, just gather a number of bits and pieces, whether they're homemade or commercial ones. And I've got a few different shapes and sizes and grades, just for getting into the various. These ones will be good because I can go onto the ledge here. And then things like the round ones we'll use for the concave, particularly around this front area. So we'll make a start. And I'll just start, I think I'll start from the middle and work either side. So we'll try some of the different ones. It's just a case of So that's all the sanding done. On the whole, it turned out not too bad. A few bits broke up, but in general, it's looking quite good. So the question is it worth the time and effort? For myself, I would say definitely. When I come to do the hull skins, it should make it a lot easier than I've encountered in the past without any filler in between. So for myself, it's definitely worth the effort. I'll stop the hull at this stage as well, purely because apart from the time it's been taken, and I'm pretty sure everyone's as bored as I am when doing the hull, the next part we'll put on the linoleum deck, and that's where the guns are going to sit. So the 6-inch guns will sit here. So for the next video I'll do the 6-inch guns, because at some stage I'm going to have to determine if I've got space to fit them through to fit, or fit partially like a carriage and then feed the gun through the side. Because obviously I don't want to have them sticking out when I come to skin the hull. They'll just get in the way and get damaged. So I'll do the 6-inch guns next. But thanks for watching.